No, you don't need to be spontaneous in order to enjoy life. I had a few discussions with a friend, and it revolved around how much spontaneity you allow yourself. And here's the problem with doing something completely spontaneous. It only works if you did your due diligence in all the other areas of your life. Because what happened, at least in my experience, if I, for example, in my teenage years went to a party, but I also knew I could do something else, maybe something better with my time, then I couldn't really enjoy the thing. Now, what is basically required is to plan room and space for the spontaneity to occur, not occur, but to take place. Because spontaneity is based on the assumption that all the other areas of your life are on a given fixed level, and that you actually can allow yourself, for example, to do a one-day trip to a different city. But if you haven't fixed your finances yet, then this whole trip probably doesn't make sense, because you will only do more harm than good. And that's the basic assumption. Therefore, the argument I am trying to make, and also trying to make in the past to this friend, is that spontaneity needs to be a planned thing. It doesn't make sense, for example, a very basic example, to call a friend to play with the entire afternoon, and I just assume playing with a friend, like playing soccer outside when you're like 10, if you haven't done your homework. And this was true for me. If I hadn't done my homework, I couldn't enjoy the afternoon. I had to worry about this thing all the time, and not for no reason, because doing the homework was much more important than the other thing. And the same is true for spontaneous things. Spontaneous things, of course, can have a very utility, so basically improving your overall life somehow. But the things you already know that have a very high utility, and maybe some of these things aren't actually very fun, this can very well just happen to be the case. But then doing the spontaneous also allows your impulsivity and also your automatic part of your mind, your system one actually, to maybe take over a little bit more. Doing something very spontaneous, such as going to the movies, such as meeting up with friends, such as going to a party, can be fun. But I found that these activities actually are the most fun if I beforehand try to clear all the other areas of my life. And what this allows you then to do is, instead of being spontaneous and deciding to go to a random party, you then only have 1 hour, for example, or 2 hours, or if you decide in the afternoon to go to this party, or to this event, or to this talk, or I don't know, or doing a spontaneous trip. But if you only decide in the afternoon, and you already are doing it in the evening, you only have a few hours to look forward to this thing. And having something to look forward to, which also is very secure in the future. So it is very secure that it actually takes place, because otherwise you might actually run into a dopamine crash, which is created by the large expectations, which maybe then are not met, and therefore you are even more disappointed compared to the situation where you didn't look forward to this event at all. Therefore, spontaneity has its place, but only if you have a clean consciousness. And a clean consciousness, of course, is only also a part of a bigger function, and this bigger function is how serious you take your life and how serious you take the things and your goals actually. If you take them very seriously and you want to be an Olympian, for example, and you go partying instead of training your bike because you want to go to the Tour de France, which is not the Olympics, but still the Tour de France, then you might run into a problem, which in overview, therefore, makes you less happy. Because, I mean, happiness is also something that is not, there is basically pleasure and there is long-term contentment. And happiness is something in between, and people don't really use the same. If people talk about happiness, they mean different things all the time. So therefore, just using happiness is maybe not the best way to talk about these things. But what I'm trying to say is, you might just harm yourself, or your goals, or your consciousness, or your self-consciousness in the long term, by trying to be spontaneous for the sake of just being spontaneous and impulsive, just because you can. Because you just might then not use your time to fulfill your goals or meet your goals in the other areas of your life.